normally quite astute and very alert. Can you see if he says he has sent it, then I really have reason to believe that he has sent it. His office is extremely efficient. Good morning, honorable members. Babawa, can you flight the agenda, please? Honorable Whip, good morning. Good morning, honorable Whip. How are you today?
Good morning, Chairperson. I'm still fine, and how are you?
Very, very good, Chairperson. I am up since 4 o'clock this morning. So if I fall asleep, please bear that in mind. The meeting
Very
of
good.
thank you, thank you. The meeting of the 15th of March, you can scroll the adoption of the agenda, the apologies, open remarks, adoption of the minutes, matters arising, the presentation by the civilian secretariat, and the closing remarks. Colleagues, we would now propose, if you have a proposal for the adoption of the agenda. Do we have a proposal for the adoption of the agenda?
Sheikh Imam, thank you.
Sheikh Imam proposes.
Second, Chair.
I have a seconder. Thank you very much, Honorable Majosi. Honorable members, the next one is the apologies. I have accepted the minister's apology because they are also doing a presentation in the NAT joints today and in cabinet today on what the response for what may possibly happen next week, Wednesday. The minister has also agreed with the deputy minister and the chairperson that we will then attend to the matters as the chair and the deputy minister, the national commissioner. National commissioner will also be leaving early, and the chair and the deputy minister and the national commissioner will deal with the matter. Honorable members, now that we have a proposal for the adoption of the agenda, I will do the opening remarks and then we will adopt the minutes. Honorable members, we have received the information from the Defense Committee. The Defense is the Justice and Correctional Services Committee has indicated to us that the Minister of Police applied for an exemption from the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services to use prohibited or listed equipment to intercept communication under the regulation of interception of communications and provision related information Act 2002. This matter was referred to the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services for approval or rejection and will serve before the Justice Committee on Friday. The consideration for the approval has been referred, as I said, to Justice. This process falls entirely within the ambit of Justice Committee, and the Portfolio Committee on Police will have no role in this process. Our role starts with oversight. I propose that we wait for the process of the Justice Committee to be finalized, and if they approve the exception, we could have a meeting with whoever in the next term. Honorable members, our meetings and our schedules are quite tight. It's very difficult to get slots, and the more meetings we add, the more difficult it becomes. So that matter will not be for discussion in the committee. If you wish to raise it later, you may kindly do so, but I won't take debate on the matter. It's not for our committee. The Justice Committee will be sitting on the 17th, which is on Friday. Justice and Correctional Services, I believe, should give us a report on the matter. Until they have given us a report on the matter, I will not entertain the discussion. You can mention your unhappiness or your satisfaction about this. Honorable members, I have also noted under matters arising on the matters of reports that I've asked from the staff. This is in preparation for us to have our strategic plan where we assess where we are as a committee from the administrative point of view. This is not an assessment of members of the staff. Members of the staff are assessed by their superiors. This is simply for the committee. We are preparing our stress plan. We want to know what we have done since we had it is preparing for our legacy report. Members will be in election mode quite soon, and we have never had that stress plan. So to prepare for our stress plan, I requested that the members of our staff prepare us. The secretary
Recording stopped.
The secretary of the committee has to indicate if we have a filing system, how questions have been responded to, how complaints from the public have responded to this. The secretary in my office also has to respond to these matters. So they have particular job descriptions. I've asked them not to respond to their job descriptions. Their job descriptions will give us an idea of what they were supposed to do, how they were supposed to assist the committee, and how we have come. It's not an evaluation of them. If there are gaps,
Recording in progress.
if there are gaps, for example, I noticed gaps in our filing system, we have to correct it. Responses to the public, we'll have to correct. Our interface between the committee and the National Commissioner, so that when the matters are referred to the office of the National Commissioner, we can guarantee that we have received the responses on those letters and that we have sent the responses to the public. It's a matter of concern for me. Colonel Steyn has been the best interface between the committee, and as I said, that we will then also thank Mr. Colonel Steyn. He received a reward which we complimented him on. I said all staff must give us reports. All staff includes Mr. Lobby and also includes Nicolette van Zyl. I just used Nobesuthu and Bawa as examples. I said all staff. The next item on the agenda will be the minutes. Can you kindly present me with the minutes, and then from the minutes we'll discuss. Honorable de Blanche, your hand is up.
Yeah, good morning, Chairperson, and good morning to the Deputy Minister and Commissioner and the whole delegation. Chairperson, I heard your ruling on the matter that's been referred to the Defence and Justice Committee, and I'm in agreement with that. I just want to ask something, and I'm not asking for a debate of anything on that matter, what I'm going to raise. Chairperson, serious allegations were made from, way back already about things in that environment and going, along with this things, that the minister is applying for now. Now, allegations and, of crime is obviously part of this committee's responsibility. And I just want to hear what happened with those allegations. How far are that investigations? Are we attending to that? Because it's very silent. We don't get any feedback back on that. And I just think it's necessary, Chairperson, just to raise it again. And maybe the police and whoever is responsible for that can just give us feedback at some stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable de Blanche. That matter will fall within the ambit of the Justice and Correctional Service Committee. You may write to them as a member of the committee, but we will not deal with it in this committee. The matter of irregularities will also be dealt with the Justice and Correctional Service Committee. Agreed? Are you happy, Honorable Tablanche?
Chairperson, no, I'm not happy because the investigation of crime is not the justice responsibility. That is the police
Honorable,
responsibility.
yes.
And
Honorable,
so the
Honorable
investigation
Tablanche,
must still be done, Chairperson. Thank you.
Honorable Tablanche, I'm calling you to order. Honorable Tablanche, I just said the matter rests with the Justice and Constitutional Development Committee. The investigations, once they have given us that report on Friday, we will take a further decision on the matter. So I'll await them. I said in the meantime, you could write to the Justice Committee.
Chairperson, may I say something, please?
Honorable Tablanche, I have closed the matter. It's part
Chairperson,
of,
may it just be noted that I'm not happy with your decision on this.
you may note it as part of the minutes, please. Thank you very much. Please note it as part of the minutes. Could I now deal with the minutes, please? Could you flag the minutes, please? Thank you very much. Page 1. Thank you very much. Page 2. Three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the end. The meeting adjourned at 13:15. Thank you very much. Matters arising from the minutes. Where's the matters arising, Babawa? You only have the staff reports. Are there no further matters arising? On the agenda. Go back to the agenda, please. Those are the resolutions.
Good morning, Chair Nicolette here. Good morning, honorable members. Chairperson, if it's okay with you, we will take the committee resolutions as maybe matters arising, but it's not included in the minutes.
I asked for matters arising as an item on the agenda. It is an item of the agenda. Can you go back to the agenda? The agenda was adopted by the meeting. Can you please go back to the agenda? You have matters arising, and under matters arising, you only have staff reports. Could you please correct the matters arising in future? I am now going to do the next item on the agenda. The first is the adoption of the minutes. May I have the adoption of the minutes, please? The noise is because I'm in a secure place, but you can hear. I am in a secure place, but you can still hear the noise. I'm at the airport. Do I have a
move the
proposal for the
adoption, Chair.
adoption of the agenda?
I move, Chair.
Moved by the whip.
Yes, I move.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder?
I second, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable Peacock seconds. Honorable members, could I find out who is C5840525? Shembeni, are you here with iPhone again? Could I please have members identify themselves, or else before record purposes, or else you will not be allowed to attend the meeting? Zoom user, all those who have logged into the meeting, could you please identify your gadgets for record purposes? This is not a closed meeting, but you have to identify your gadgets. If you do not, I'll request that the secretariat removes you from the meeting. I'm giving you an opportunity to name your gadgets. Thank you very much. There's still an iPhone. The HOD of the Western Cape, Yashina Pillay, you are welcome.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Do you have a delegation?
Yes,
Honorable,
thank you. May I proceed, Honorable Chair?
yes, you may proceed.
Thank you very much. MEC Allen is also on the platform. He was just trying to rename his device. It was listed as just a number. So I think he just stepped out now to rename his device, and he will join. And I'm also joined then by Amanda Dissel, who is our Director Policy Research, as well as Ms. Victoria Tully, who is also with the Directorate Policy and Research as well. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Welcome to the delegation of the Western Cape. Could you indicate to me from the admin side, Nicolette send me a message once the MEC has joined so that I welcome the MEC. Has the MEC joined already? When the MEC has joined, could you please indicate if the MEC has joined? Deputy Minister, we are now with the next item on the agenda. So you could introduce the item, and then you could we just, Nicolette, have you assisted to rename them? Honorable Deputy Minister, you now have the opportunity to do the presentation. You can introduce your team. Thank you, Honorable National Commissioner and your team. Honorable Deputy Minister, you have been delegated, the task has been delegated to you to deal with the ICVPS today. You may introduce your team.
Thank you very much, Chair. And good morning to you. Good morning to members of the committee. Good morning to everybody who is on the platform. We are going to make a presentation, but let me indicate that we, from the Civilian Secretariat, we are led by the Acting Secretary, Mr. Ramaru Takalani. He is with his team. Through you at the appropriate moment, he will then introduce the delegation from the Secretariat. But we are also joined by the National Commissioner and his delegation, and I'll request, Chair, if you allow and time permits, he will then introduce the delegation from the South African Police Service, and we also have the head of the national head of DPCI, General Lebeya. If you may, Chair, I can request that we allow the National Commissioner first to introduce his team, and then followed by the Civilian Secretariat, who will immediately lead in the presentation of the strategy that we are going to present to you as an agenda item, which is an approach adopted by Cabinet of the Republic of South Africa in terms of our approach to the fight against crime, how we can go about preventing that by coming with preventive measures, because police on their own, they will never succeed. It doesn't matter how many people we arrest, we won't resolve the problem. So we must deal with the root causes of this. And this document, the strategy is intended to deal with that in terms of who must do what from the side of government, but broadly, we need to mobilize society and the entire country behind this approach so that each and every citizen of this country should know that they have a role and they must contribute towards that they must contribute in that regard. The successful implementation of this is going to see a drastic change in the way as a country we deal with problems that we are confronted with, not only crime, but broadly the problems that affect the country. And this goes through all the three tiers of government, both national, provincial, and local government, of course, inclusive of this district and metros. Each sphere of government has a role to play. Each community has a role to play, and this will be outlined as we present the presentation to you. We have prepared an executive summary that we are going to present of the strategy. I think it's about 15 slides. We tried to narrow it to allow for engagement in the committee, and for further details, I think committee members will get the opportunity to go through the document itself and further enrich their understanding on this. If you may allow, Chair, we can introduce the delegation that is here through your guidance. It's Acting Secretary and the National Commissioner can do so, and then further the Acting Secretary to lead in the presentation. Through you,
Honorable Deputy Minister, before you start your presentation, how many slides do you have?
It's 15.
Thank you very much. You must start.
No, it's 17. Sorry, Chair, it's 17. Yeah, 17.
Yes, I was just taking that for record purposes because it's a decision we have taken. I read your presentation and I do know how many pages you have. Could the documents be circulated for the sake of all the guests and for the public? I am MEC. Are you here? Is the MEC here? Honorable MEC Western Cape, are you still struggling to connect?
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, DM, and all other members in the committee. I am definitely present. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Honorable Reagan Allen. We are pleased to have you joining us. We did not extend you an invitation. I think we could extend invitations to MECs in the future. You have certainly set a good example. Nicolette, can you now please check for me that we have all gadgets named? Now that I have the MEC, his gadget has been named and he has been welcomed. You may start now with your presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Acting Secretary, if you can just, without going into all the names, indicate that provinces are also connected from the Secretariat side and introduce me with the team you have with you. Through you, Chair.
Before you start again, my apologies. MEC Reagan, you may be on the platform, but you cannot participate in the meeting. So you cannot raise your hand. When we have invited you to participate, you may do so. You have not been invited to participate. You are then not given an opportunity to raise your hand and speak in the meeting. I hope you find that in order. Thank you. You may continue with your presentation.
Good morning.
Please
Good morning,
continue with
Chairperson.
your presentation.
Good morning, Chairperson, honorable members, Deputy Minister. As Deputy Minister had indicated, I'm joined with the management team from the Civilian Secretariat for Police Service, and also 8 provinces have also joined us in the platform, the HODs or heads of secretariat. But the person who's going to lead the presentation on our behalf is Ms. Lillian Mashele from our research team.
Again, you know, we're not getting very far with the protocols. You said you have other HODs.
Yes, Chairperson.
Could you first indicate who those HODs are? I only welcome the HOD from the Western Cape because of the manner in which the gadgets were identified.
Okay, thank you so much, Chairperson.
Could you welcome and introduce them, please?
Okay, thank you so much, Chairperson. We have the HOD from Gauteng, Ms. Nontsikelelo Sisulu, and HOD from Northern Cape, Mr. Peterse. We have the already introduced HOD Western Cape Advocate Yashina Pillay. We have acting HOD from Limpopo, Mr. Majena. We then have the head of secretariat from Eastern Cape, Ms. Pumla Ngakula. We have the head of secretariat from the Free State, Mr. Masilo. And we have the head of secretariat from Northern Cape, Mr. Derki Jason. Those are the provinces that are represented, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramaro. Remember protocol in the future that if any HOD or head of the civilian secretariats from the provinces are here, that they should be introduced. Please recognize that protocol. All those HODs, acting HODs, I'm not going to name you again. If you wish to show your handsome face and your beautiful face, you are allowed to do so now. HOD, raise your hand if you would like to show your face. And introduce yourself. You are happy with the introduction and the welcoming? They are happy. Mr. Ramaro, you may continue.
Thank you, Chairperson. My apology, I've forgotten the head of secretariat from Mpumalanga, Mr. Wongani Kubai, is also in the platform. Chairperson, as I've already indicated, the person who's going to lead the presentation is Ms. Lillian Mashele. Through you, I will hand over to her.
Please continue.
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, honorable members. I'll be presenting on the Integrated Crime and Violence Prevention Strategy, also known as the ICVPS. So just for a bit of contextual background, I don't know if the slide's moving. The slide is not moving on my end. I don't know if it's moving on your end. There we go. Just for a bit of contextual background, I'll be skipping the outline of the presentation. It really speaks to the detail of what is contained in the presentation. But for a bit of context in terms of how we find ourselves with this integrated crime and violence prevention strategy, I just want to pull out some key policy documents and strategies that have contributed to the development of the integrated crime and violence prevention strategy. So members will be aware of the 1998 crime and violence prevention, national crime prevention strategy rather, as well as the 1998 white paper on safety and security. So there was, through the review of the 1996 NCPS as well as the 1998 white paper on safety and security, came out the 2016 white paper on policing, as well as the white paper on safety and security. And the focus for this morning's presentation is on the white paper on safety and security. We've then developed a strategy as an implementation mechanism for the 2016 white paper on safety and security. So this strategy, the ICVPS, really recognizes that safety is not the responsibility of the South African Police Service alone, but that safety extends beyond the purview of policing, and rather advocates for a whole of government and a whole of society to come together and adopt an integrated approach to crime and violence prevention. So the ICVPS, in essence, really recognizes, as I've mentioned earlier, that there is also a result, that crime and violence are a result of a complex web of social, economic, and political factors that are also developed through different stages within the socio-ecological model. And therefore, because of the cumulative impact of risk factors for crime and violence prevention strategy, or rather of crime and violence on a person's life, including an individual, community, structural, environmental, cultural, as well as social dimension, the interventions must also then begin to address crime and violence prevention at a primary, secondary, and tertiary level. Increasingly, one may recognize and realize there has been a shift away from a traditional responsive security focus to a more preventative safety focus. And I think in the opening, the Deputy Minister mentioned that we need to also start looking at preventative measures as opposed to reactive measures, which is what the focus in terms from policing largely is placed on. So these preventative safety focus must address underlying issues by leveraging on risk and protecting factors. So considering safety is obviously a key concern, and it's really about addressing cross-cutting root causes of violence, crime, and vulnerability. So what are the causes that have led us to this fight of crime and violence that we're experiencing today? The resulting interventions will then need to be different and have included the consideration of safety in planning as a common outcome for all stakeholders in government, but also across the three spheres of government, including advocating for active citizenry and partnerships with communities, businesses, and civil society. So the ICVPS approach requires diverse resources, diverse skills, and of course, multi-sectoral stakeholders. We've spoken to how the ICVPS advocates for a whole of government and a whole of society approach to addressing the challenges with crime and violence through localized interventions. So this strategy really is to ensure that the basic elements are in place in every aspect of a person's life in order to circumvent the possibility of the occurrence of crime and violence. So, Honorable Chairperson, this diagram that we're looking at now, in essence, really captures the crux of the ICVPS. What we're looking at here is government, what we've called government's house of safety. At the top there is what the desired impact and outcomes, which really is about all people being and feeling safe. So not beyond the feeling of safety, we really want to see a time where people experience safety through improved social development and sustainable economic growth, building safer communities. So the strategy is really founded on 6 key pillars, which I'll speak to in following presentations, but these pillars are namely the effective criminal justice system, early intervention, victim support, and effective and integrated service delivery for safety, security, and violence prevention. Pillar number 5 being safety through environmental design, and of course, active public and community participation. So in order for us to get to a place where people are and feel safe, there needs to be some enablers that are in place, some system level requirements, and these speak to aligning policy and strategies of all departments and role players making sure that there's alignment in strategies and legislation. We need to ensure that we have sufficient resources and budgets allocated to interventions and programs that seek to address crime and violence and the prevention thereof. There needs to be the capacitation of implementation mechanisms, and of course, these must be informed by evidence. So planning and implementation must then be informed by evidence to say, yes, it's been proven to work, and hence we're adopting certain interventions and approaches. It also speaks to alignment of programs and interventions, and of course, strengthening intergovernmental cooperation. Now, this, good and well as it may be, cannot be successful if we don't have and enhance the coordination, the collaboration, the integration, the planning, as well as the monitoring and evaluation to ensure that when we implement the strategy, we really drive towards a shared vision, and that indeed we all drive towards a place where all people in South Africa are and feel safe. So I've spoken previously to the 6 pillars within the strategy. I'll touch on the subcomponents of these pillars and areas that need to be addressed for us to realize these impacts and outcomes of this integrated crime and violence prevention strategy, starting with the effective criminal justice system. And this really speaks to efficient and restorative justice mechanisms and how responsive and how professional is the criminal justice system. So the experience of the criminal justice system, which is more often than not the entry point of services for many, including victims and others, when we speak about access to the justice system, but also looking at other elements. So entire value chain, how do we improve and enhance our diversion and rehabilitation, as well as reintegration programs to ensure that perpetrators can be rehabilitated, but also when they go out in society, become fully efficient and contributing members of society. So I'll look at the next pillar, which would be the safety through environmental design. And this is really about how do we ensure in our day-to-day duties across the 3 spheres of government and other stakeholders that we consider in our planning and in our implementation, crime prevention through environmental design principles. So when we're planning in terms of urbanization or rural or urban development or in those spaces, how do we consider safety to ensure that whatever space we design, it's a space that is one that promotes safe spaces, but also social cohesion, as well as economic development for communities. The third would be
Recording
victim support.
stopped.
So in terms of victim support, this pillar speaks to ensuring that we uphold the implementation of the Victims Charter, and we really look after the needs of victims and also provide quality psychosocial support for victims of crime.
Recording in progress.
Over and above that, it's really the intention to ensure that the victim receives services. So if you are a victim of gender-based violence or sexual offenses, your experience from entering the police station, do you get access to the Department of Health, which will then support with post-exposure prophylaxis, but also to Zella Care Centers. So how do those all those role players ensure that there's that synergy? And speaking to that synergy then leads me to the 4th pillar, which is about effective and integrated service delivery. So from that entry point to getting to a place where you've experienced the entire value chain, and there's justice, and there's rehabilitation, and there's a society, members of society, both victims and perpetrators. How do we ensure that service delivery is integrated? It speaks to the professionalism and the responsiveness of the services that are provided for. It speaks to access to crime and violence prevention and safety and security services. So this is the pillar that focuses on those areas. The 5th pillar of the ICVPS is about early intervention to prevent crime and violence. So from when a child is young, from cradle to the grave, really, how do we ensure a healthy start for infants and children? How do we ensure that the home environment, we've spoken about the socio-ecological model and the risk that exists within the individual, the family, the environment. So how do we ensure that they're safe and supportive home environments, safe and supportive school environments, is a safe and supportive community environment for children and youth who are at risk of being perpetrators of crime and violence, but also of experiencing crime and violence. And once we've addressed those, we also, when we then want to build
recording in progress,
we need to ensure that these resilience programs address the right matters, and we need to then ensure context appropriate child and youth resilient programs. So that's really about ensuring that our interventions are targeted and really yield results. It also speaks to, I've spoken to context appropriate interventions for vulnerable, but also at risk and target groups. And of course, speaking to issues where we find ways to reduce access to substance abuse for those who have not come into contact with it, but also then how do we support those who are already in contact with the abuse of alcohol and drugs, and how do we then treat, but also focus on the prevention thereof. And the last pillar that I just want to touch on is that of active and community participation. You cannot speak about us without including us. And we're moving away from having people make input and consult, but rather become co-planners and co-designers of safety interventions. So we need to ensure that we have sustainable forums and coordinated and collaborative approaches that include members of community. And this can be through community safety forums and the community policing forums, but also extending beyond that with partnering with civil society organizations and business partnerships, but as well as traditional leaders in our rural communities. So in terms of the leadership and the coordination of the implementation of the integrated crime and violence prevention strategy, at a national level, the strategy is located at the presidency. This also strengthens those accountability mechanisms where every role player is able to then showcase how they contribute to the implementation of the integrated crime and violence prevention strategy, with the appreciation that reduction of crime and violence is not just about policing issues, but that everyone has a role to play as per the six pillars that we've just spoken to. So at a provincial level, Honorable Chairperson, we've identified that the office of the Premier is the relevant political leadership and authority that is required to drive the successful implementation at a provincial level. Of course, the Justice, Crime Prevention and Security Cluster has a critical role to play in terms of strengthening that coordination and streamlining cluster department activities that relate to the ICVPS. But one must also acknowledge that it is not only the JCPS cluster that has a role to play in ensuring successful implementation of the ICVPS and contributing to the reduction of crime, and hopefully we realize a place where people are and feel safe. So the JCPS cluster must ensure that, of course, there's an efficient, responsive, and professional criminal justice system for seamless integration and coordination. And of course, that departments then develop clear plans with resources to implement the ICVPS. But also there are opportunities that government has provided for the implementation of the ICVPS. One such is, of course, the district development model, and those activities are led by the Department of Cooperative Governance, and they've actually started with the development of guidelines and regulations that facilitate the institutionalization of the ICVPS across government through the district development model. And I know in terms of the CSPS and provincial secretariats, we've been participating in the development as well of one plans through the DDM processes. And these one plans then allow an opportunity to ensure that we as stakeholders and advocates for crime and violence prevention make sure that the issue of safety is not lost when we speak about the implementation of the district development model. So these are opportunities that we're capitalizing on for the implementation of the ICVPS. So, of course, the CSPS supports the ICVPS implementation through stakeholder engagements and mobilizations. These happens also through the partnership units and also interactions, rather encourage interactions with business communities who support the implementation of the ICVPS through specific resources as well, and this can be done through public-private partnerships. The Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation is to lead the monitoring and evaluation of the implementation of the ICVPS at a national level. The ICVPS, the document itself, honorable members will find in the document, at the back of the document, makes proposals for indicators for all departments, including lead departments and the roles that they play. So we've broken down those activities that may speak to certain departments and make proposals for indicators. And these indicators, of course, through DPME allows for measuring and tracking the progress also in the medium-term strategic framework. So the coordination of the ICVPS in terms of a provincial levels, which is informed by the intergovernmental relations framework, really seeks to ensure the inclusion and the elevation of community safety, crime and violence prevention into strategic priorities and core provincial plans. We all know if it's not planned for, it then cannot be budgeted for. So we really need to drive for the inclusion of community safety, crime and violence prevention into our strategic priorities and our planning documents. Also seeks to facilitate an integrated approach across all provincial departments and ensure that there is integration of the ICVPS into provincial monitoring and evaluation systems. So in terms of the role that the CSPS would play in the implementation of the ICVPS, and one of which is already in the process of being undertaken or has been undertaken, is really providing input into input to DCOG rather on the development of guidelines on community safety, on key performance indicators for community safety for the IDPs, and provincial assessment tools for IDPs in respect of community safety. So the CSPS has been participating and has made inputs and interacting with DCOG in terms of that requirement as per the ICVPS. But other roles for the CSPS, of course, include the reviewing and strengthening community policing policy where required, as well as the Community Safety Forum, and providing support to provincial secretariats in implementing community safety functions through the development of guidelines, the development of systems and tools, building capacities, and of course, providing technical support. And of course, to monitor and evaluate by developing standard reporting frameworks for reporting obligations from the provincial secretariats, as well as receiving monitoring reports from provincial secretariats on support provided to local governments. So the three tiers of government also in their collaboration interact with one another and support the implementation holistically of the ICVPS. Just looking at some of the roles, I won't go into all the detail of the provincial departments of community safety and provincial secretariats, is really ensuring that there is engagement with the provincial executive on issues that pertain to community safety, and to garner support, buy-in, collaboration for effective implementation of the ICVPS, to also ensure that there is establishment of community safety forums. And we've spoken to a prioritization of the budget to find safety programs. And I think for provincial secretariats, it's already most likely above the 1% in terms of goods and services, as safety is a core mandate for the provincial departments of community safety. Over and above that, the role of the provincial departments, of course, is to provide support and capacity in the development of local community safety strategies and plans. So provincial safety plans, and I know they've been supporting the development of provincial crime and violence prevention strategies within the different provinces. Of course, with the recognition that some provinces have different nuances that must be recognized in planning for safety. And that also another role would be to provide community safety input into IDPs through the DDM, which is led by DCOG, which I've spoken to as well. We've spoken to the implementation of the function that's set out in the community policing policy, ensuring that there is alignment of the ICVPS with the district development model to ensure that we facilitate that integrated development planning and budgeting. I think the intention here is to really ensure that in the integration that we're all driving for crime and violence prevention and pulling or driving in the same direction for it, and that the resources can be better planned for and better allocated. But this requires joint planning and, of course, understanding each and every department's role and stakeholders stakeholders' role in their contribution to crime and violence prevention. So the DDM definitely provides a platform for all stakeholders across the 3 spheres of government to engage and develop long-term integrated strategies and plans to improve on service delivery. Provincial secretariats must therefore ensure that they participate in the development of the one plans, which they do for all districts and metros. The role of local government, and now, Honorable Chairperson, I think local government, there must be the understanding that it is the interface between communities and government. So local government, in fulfilling really their functional mandates, begins to really significantly contribute to the implementation of the ICVPS, as well as the reduction of crime and violence. So in terms of ensuring that they oversee the development and drafting of IDPs with the consideration, of course, of the ICVPS in this development of IDPs, but also the developing and also ensuring implementation of bylaws and facilitating the provision of support to municipalities on the implementation of the ICVPS. So this would also be the role of local government. But I think key also is realizing that the role of local government is the provision of basic services. This begins to address, and we've spoken to some of the socioeconomic factors that contribute to crime and violence, So provision of basic services begins to address social and environmental factors that actually impact community safety and the well-being of those who reside in our communities. Of course, it speaks to the role that they have in terms of community and social development, and of course, addressing the underlying causes of crime and violence. If we address and we all do our part, we also then start to contribute to economic development. If we speak about the role of local government in terms of transport and transit systems, how do we address structures of environmental factors that impact on community safety? So if we look at the pillar on environmental design and we're speaking about transport and transit systems, where is the allocation in our urban planning? Where do we allocate taxis? Are there safe walkways? Is there sufficient street lighting in those places? Where there are open fields and parks, is the grass cut to promote really safety and thus reduce crime and violence? So when we consider designing, planning and zoning, how do we do this with the consideration of the safety and crime prevention through environmental design principles when we do all of this? But also local government also is responsible for facilitating community safety partnerships through legislated and other partnership mechanisms. Local government, I've spoken to how critical the role is as the interface between government and communities, have a key role to play in terms of coordinating crime and violence prevention activities within the areas with the relevant stakeholders, but also must work with the local police in setting joint priorities and identifying the gaps and the solutions. So I think in terms of the ICVPS, when we speak whole of government, whole of society, it's really with the appreciation that no man is an island, and to achieve this, we would need to pull together not only our skills, but also our resources. Is also responsibility of provision of diversion and restorative justice interventions in municipalities. I think so in terms of, and in the second slide, Honorable Chairperson, there was a legislative framework that outlined some of the key government legislations, including the constitutions that inform the development of the integrated crime and violence prevention strategy. But in terms of alignment to other policies, which I think we've really gained momentum in ensuring that there is co-implementation as well, is really the alignment to the integrated urban development framework, which really recognizes that violence and crime stem from a complex web of risk factors that we've spoken to, and thus needs to be addressed through the different levels, primary, secondary, and tertiary interventions. And this is directly aligned to the intentions and the policy position or the strategic position of the integrated crime and violence prevention strategy. Another strategy that really directly aligns itself to the ICVPS, and we've been working with the Department of Women, Youth and People with Disabilities to implement the strategies, both strategies, with the ICVPS being the overarching strategy for integrated crime and violence prevention. The National Strategic Plan for Gender-Based Violence and Femicide also then seeks to implement strategic prevention interventions to reduce the occurrence of crime and violence, particularly against women and children and other vulnerable groups. And so we align, or that rather these strategies also align and to the integrated crime and violence prevention strategy, which is really a government initiative, much like the UDF, that seeks to really garner a shared understanding across government and across society, how we can come together to achieve goals that contribute to economic development, job creation, reduced risks for crime and violence in our people, as well as encourage collaboration at all levels of government across the 3 spheres of government which are advocated for by the ICVPS. In conclusion, Chairperson, I think we would like to recognize that the ICVPS really highlight rather that the ICVPS provides a proactive preventative approach to addressing crime and violence. It brings together all the stakeholders, all the government role players, and promotes an active citizenry and promotes partnerships between communities and business and civil society to come together to proactively prevent crime and violence. It speaks to the need to also leverage on existing mechanisms such as the DDM to engage stakeholders across the 3 spheres of government to develop long-term integrated strategies and plans to improve service delivery. And service delivery is being an operative intention as well. But also the implementation of the ICVPS will require commitment, coordination, collaboration from all stakeholders. So we've spoken to the pillars, we've spoken to the enabling mechanisms, but for us to see successful implementation of the strategy, we would require commitment, coordination, and collaboration from all relevant stakeholders. This is a vehicle that will help the country to navigate its way to achieving government's priority of halving crime by 2020, with the appreciation and acknowledgement and understanding that crime is not just a matter for the police. It extends way beyond that, and that must be addressed at the root causes of where crime occurs. With that, if I may close with the Honorable President's SONA, a quote from the Honorable President SONA of 2019, that we must agree as a nation and as a people, united in our aspiration, that within the next years, we will have made progress in tackling poverty, inequality, and unemployment. Ensure that violent crime will be halved, if not eliminated. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, I thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Amaru, do you have any further comments?
No, I only wanted to indicate that that's the end of our presentation, Chair.
Thank you very much. DM, further comments?
No, thanks, Chair. Thanks for the opportunity to allow us to make this presentation. Much appreciated. Thank you very much.
DM, I lost connectivity. Are you done?
No, thanks, Chair. We are done. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you very much, Honorable DM. And thank you very much, recognizing and appreciating the presentations that were made. 3 critical points I wish to make. First is, have you consulted provinces on this matter, since they are here today and cannot speak? One, I'd like to know if you have consulted the provinces on this. I'll ask you to respond before the members are allowed an opportunity to speak. 2, when will we have a permanent head of the Civilian Secretariat? The head of the Civilian Secretariat was supposed to be appointed a long time ago, a very, very long time ago. Please, we have Mr. Amaru acting for a very long time. Can you please indicate how we are going to fill this vacancy and when we are going to fill this vacancy? The last matter that I'm asking you before I take questions and comments from the members. How does this fit into the amendment of the SAPS Act? When will you bring the SAPS amendment bill? If you are giving me a policy when you have already developed the SAPS amendment bill, what is this policy going to mean for us? And will it ever be included in the SAPS amendment bill? If it is not going to be included in the SAPS amendment bill, we can refer you to another meeting and give you another chance where you give us the correlation between this presentation and the SAPS amendment bill. Could I have a response to those questions, please? Tim, you can indicate who will answer.
Mr. Ramaru, may we have a response from the team? Thanks.
Tim, can you respond to the matter of the permanent head? I don't think Mr. Amaru should respond to that.
That is being finalized with DPSA. Chair, we are working together to finalize that. We understand the agency. It has been long that the secretary left. We did engage a process to appoint. There were technicalities around the candidate that was earmarked to be that was recommended, and currently we are reworking the process so that we look at various options. The Department of Public Service and Administration is assisting us in that regard. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Tim. Mr. Amaru.
Thank you, Chairperson. The first question was whether we have consulted with provinces. Yes, I want to confirm that yes, indeed, we consulted with the provinces in the development of the strategy, and we are still even continuing to work with them in the process of the implementation of the strategy. The third question was about whether this has any relations with the bill that we're working on the SAPS Act. Yes, I want to indicate that yes, indeed, in the development of the bill, this has also been taken into consideration, and we are now in the final stages of the few changes that we are making on the bill, which will now then we will start the processes of consulting with the cluster and eventually coming to the portfolio committee. Thanks, Chairperson.
Mr. Ramaru, I am Honorable Deputy Minister, and respectfully, can you please bring me that kind of comparison between this policy and the amendment bill? You cannot take that amendment bill to the cluster unless you have given me a detailed and as a schematic, I want a presentation on the correlations between your policy and the bill and the deviations between your policy and the bill. With those words, as the chair, I'm going to give you an opportunity at a later stage, but as a chair, I am referring this matter back to the Civilian Secretariat. I'm not going to approve a policy or recommend that we note this policy, and later on I'll find that when you bring me the amendment bill, that indeed there are substantial differences and substantive differences that we need to make. For that, Tim and Mr. Amaru, please note the correlation must include the white papers on policing and safety and security. What is the correlation between what you have presented to me now and the white papers on policing and safety and security? Your white papers differ quite substantially from what you are presenting me today. Please go back and answer those questions. You will be called when you bring me we'll be calling you to give us a briefing on the SAPS amendment bill, and then you can present your policy again. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda, DM, will be a briefing on what we are dealing with when it comes to next week Monday. I know that the minister is in the net joints, and that once we have some direction from the net joints, we will be able to further engage with the committee. I'm seriously attempting to have a physical meeting with the committee members on Friday. When the committee members do respond, kindly do not put it in the chat group. When you respond, kindly also indicate your availability for a physical meeting on Friday. Due to the sensitivity of the matter at hand, I would like those discussions to happen in a physical meeting on Friday. You will also then indicate your availability. Mr. Amaro, you will come back to a next session. Thank you very much. You will bring us the correlation between what you are proposing and the white paper on policing, safety and security, as well as the SAPS amendment bill. I would like to know whatever differences, whatever substantive changes, whatever correlations you have, please bring me that presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Amaro and your team. Are they required for the next session, Honorable DM? Honorable DM, would the Civilian Secretariat be required for the next briefing?
Not necessarily, but they can stay if they
Thank you, DM. Thank you, DM. They may stay. The provinces may also stay, but they cannot participate. DM, could you give us a briefing? I've asked that you do not do so in writing. Please, DM, we do not want to hear about your operational plans. The details we will take in this Friday's meeting, but kindly indicate if DM, you will also be available. I have approached the minister directly so that he engages with the committee in a physical meeting, not a physical, just now it gets physical and we start beating one another. But then we would have this meeting on Friday. DM, the floor is yours.
No, thanks, Chair. I think if the chairperson's office lies with the ministry, we whatever date that the two offices arrive at, I guess we will avail ourselves for that engagement. We will be guided by your office, Chair, together with the ministry, the minister's office. With regard to what has been happening, the strikes that the labor dispute, because of these negotiations currently taking place, the labor resorted to different tactics to advance their agenda of negotiating with government, part of which had to do with the protest actions that also went beyond what is normally accepted. And there have been responses by government, which is in the public domain now, where interdicts were made and government won, particularly around services that has to do with emergency related matters, health and other issues. Police have interacted with that environment. Of course, this has also coincided with calls that were made by other political parties and about wanting to shut down the country next week. they've engaged in different activities, which to a greater extent, I think is related to their build-up activities towards next week. We have also responded to deal with the protest at institutions of higher learning that were triggered by a different demands or environment that exists at those institutions of higher learning, where you find students who are owing universities who could not register or be registered, and students responding by protest actions in various institutions in KZN, Western Cape. We have seen those incidences, and even the police have been responding. We have had discussions about what might likely happen next week, and we have taken the necessary precautionary measures in as the police or as security cluster, because we have been interacting as the JCPS cluster. One of the meetings took place yesterday where we're discussing how we are going to deal with. From the side of the South African police, we have mobilized all the sectors within the force that will assist us to deal with whatever environment. I can safely say that we have interacted with our provinces. The PCs, we had engagement this week, Monday, or planning how we are going to respond to this. And subsequent to that, as I said, there have been JCPS meetings, and there will be the leadership of government through the National Security Council also had discussions on the plans that are there to deal with whatever situation that can unfold come that day. I think we are ready to deal with the shutdown, the planned shutdown for Monday. We will be working around the clock. We have been working since these pronouncements were made by these parties that this is what they are going to do. We have been preparing ourselves, and I think one can confidently say that we are ready to deal with whatever eventuality that will unfold on a Monday. If we may, the National Commissioner had to disconnect chair to go and deal with part of what we are discussing here. But we have the Deputy Acting National Commissioner, General Nzia, who is on the platform. I think she can comment on issues that I have not touched, but without saying this is our plan, because it will not be appropriate for us to go into details at this platform, given the nature of a virtual engagement. But I can say, Chair, that we are ready, and we are working with all the law enforcement in the country to ensure that we respond as one, and we should be able to do that. If you may allow, I can ask General Nzia to make some comments on the issue that is on the table through you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. The Minister indicated that they will be busy in the JCPS cluster and in the NatJoins. Honorable members, Honorable MEC has another engagement. I don't know if he is still here. I'm just in it in the chat group now. Honorable Reagan Allen, are you still here? Or have you left already? I think he has left. Nicolette has left.
And Chairperson, yes, the MEC has left.
HOD kindly can convey our appreciation on behalf of the committee to the MEC for attending today's session. We hope to have more MECs join us in the future. Can we now have the acting NASCOM to do a presentation, the verbal one, please?
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members of the committee, our Deputy Minister of the Police, as well as all other colleagues in the platform. Yes, Chairperson, I can confirm that on the part of the SAPS, we are ready for Monday. The operational members, they've been hard at work in terms of finalizing their plan. And as the DM has indicated, unfortunately, we cannot share all the details of our plan, but we are ready as a South African. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
DM, please DM, you are disrupting my meeting.
Hello, Chair.
You are disrupting my meeting. Can you mute, please?
Oh, I thought it's muted. I'm sorry.
Thank you. You may continue.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I was just indicating that the operational team under the leadership of Lieutenant General Sintimule, they have been hard at work in terms of, finalizing the plan for Monday. We have received directives and inputs from our principals. The plan is ready, and as the ACPS, we are ready, Chairperson, to police whatever that will be happening on Monday. So just to give you comfort, Chairperson, that as the South African Police Service, we are ready to action our plan. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Tim and your team. Honorable members, I'm receiving messages from your good self in my inbox to say that you first want to check your diaries and you would like to then also respond after you have been briefed on the logistics of Friday's meeting. I recognize that, so you don't need to be responding. We'll check with you if you are available. On behalf of the WIP, we would also like, the WIP has also indicated that it was an honor having the Honorable MEC in our meeting. He has wished the MEC luck, and that be recorded in our minutes so that it is not just part of the chat. We look forward to further engagements in the future in this regard, MEC Allen. Can that be indicated in our records, please? That he had a prior engagement and will exit the committee. Please indicate that the MEC was present and also indicate that the HODs were present. They were not invitees, but they could be recognized in the minutes of our next meeting, of this meeting, to be approved in our next meeting. Honorable members, we'll also have the HODs as well as the civilian secretariat leadership from the provinces recognized in our minutes. I will now take a round of hands. I'll take a show of hands now. Honorable Shembeni, I said that if you continue having iPad, I'm not going to allow you to speak. Nicolette, can you please assist Honorable Shembeni? Honorable Shembeni, I told you that I'm not going to allow you to speak. Next, Honorable Tablan.
Sorry, Chair. I struggled with my laptop. I couldn't hear anything. I called Babalwa. That's why I resorted now back to the iPad. I'm very sorry. Thank you.
Honorable Shimbeni, you may start, and then Honorable De Blanche.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thanks for the presentation. Mine is just to find out whether the department has experienced any challenges related to political will to drive and implement the ICVPS. Secondly, how effective are the MMCs and the MECs for safety and securities from provinces and local municipalities in terms of working with the police, giving us feedbacks, giving us to say what problems are they experiencing in their areas and so on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Shimbeni. It's very clear that you had problems with your gadget. Honorable Shimbeni, the chairperson made a ruling that the ICVPS would come back with the SAPS amendment bill, which requires the civilian secretariat to show the correlation between the IVPS and ICVPS and the SAPS amendment bill, as well as the white papers on policing, safety and security. We will have that response when they return. They will return shortly. Honorable De Blanche, and then Honorable, we had Siabi, your hand, I don't see your hand any longer, and I see the hand of Peacock. Honorable De Blanche.
Chairperson, thank you. I fully support your ruling, what you made about, the Secretariat to come back. So I'm not going to ask any questions regarding this at the moment because I have a lot of questions, but it's not appropriate to ask it today. And I'll reserve that, for when I'm back before the meeting, because this is really, there are a lot of questions, but I think you dealt with that correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable De Blanche. I'm sure if you studied the SAPS amendment bill and you studied the white papers, there are considerable differences between the white paper and the amendment bill. So if the policy is not based on the white paper, will this policy be included or will the white paper be amended? There's no indication where the correlation between these documents, eventually a bill is formulated on the basis of policy, on the basis of your white paper. But there's clearly not a clear line between these three papers or policy papers or amendment bills. I think there's a bit of a confusion there. The next is Honorable Shimbeni. Honorable Peacock. Shimbeni, do you want to come in on the next item? Which
No,
is
I
next.
think an old hand, Chair.
All right, thank you. Honorable Peacock.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, everyone on the platform. Chairperson, let me take this opportunity first to welcome the presentation. And I would like to commend SAPS really for coming up with this strategy. The reason I'm saying so is that on the last meeting that we had with the Auditor General, one of the audit outcomes that came out was that SAPS on the findings was that most of our plans are reactive programs, especially when it comes to gender-based violence. But now I see that the approach that is with regard to the integrated crime and violence prevention strategy would be able to mitigate what the Auditor General's findings were regarding to the gender-based violence, especially when it speaks to the perpetrators getting a rehabilitations. It shows that we are online and we are prepared to mitigate the outcome that was set out by the Auditor General on the last meeting. The question that I would like to ask is that, Chairperson, on the annual performance plan addendum that we had of 2020
Honorable
2023.
Honorable Peacock,
Yes,
my
Chair.
apology. The chairperson has already made a ruling on this matter that the civilian secretariat will come back. If you have anything to raise about next week, the chairperson made a ruling that the civilian secretariat will return. Would you like to raise anything about next week? And then Honorable Siabe, is your hand down now?
Yeah, Chair, I'll raise next week. It's fine. Thank you.
Honorable Siabe, have you lowered your hand?
No, thanks, Chair. Mine was just to commend the police for doing everything in their power and be ready to deal with the mushrooming protest in the country. And they promised that they will deal with them in a responsible manner. And I wanted to appreciate that, so that the country is at ease, knowing very well that our police officers will be able to deal with these things in a responsible manner, while recognizing the rights of whoever to protest or raise issues. That's what I wanted to raise, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Honorable Whip. I'm really happy that we are attending to the matter in this fashion. Before I do the concluding remarks, I'd allow the Acting National Commissioner and the DM to have their final inputs and also to respond to the comments by the members, but nothing to do with the matter of the civilian secretariat, which we said would be addressed in the committee. When not next week, when we have amended the program. Program has to be amended if you would like to add a new item. So the ICVPS will be returned to the committee with the ruling made by the chair. Honorable Acting National Commissioner and then the Deputy Minister, that order. What happened? DM?
For sure, there's a problem of connectivity, Chair. I think let's proceed to appreciate the platform given and the other issues that you have resolved that we need to have further engagement on. That is appreciated, and thank you very much for the chair and members for allowing us to interface with yourself this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kim, and thank you very much to you and the Honorable National Commissioner and Minister for working with the whip of the committee and the chair of the committee. Thank you very much for briefing us consistently. We'll also have a meeting of the minister, the deputy minister, the chair, the national commissioner, the whip, physical meeting where we receive regular briefings and where we raise our concerns, and which obviously we would not like to make public. I'm sure because of the sensitivity of the matter, you will understand that we cannot brief you on all the details of those discussions. Honorable members, I will be communicating with you to find out if you can indeed do a meeting on Friday, where we will schedule it. We'll see what is most convenient. I've already interacted with Honorable Groenewald. He says he's not available for Friday. I'll call members, as you know. I receive your inputs and I call you personally. Honorable De Blanche has also indicated that he has another commitment for Friday. Members, if you inbox me, I'll be able to then gather if we can have that meeting on Friday. Hopefully, if not, we could then continue our discussion in some other form. But I'm reluctant to have that discussion online. Honorable members, if we have no further comments, Honorable Whip, I see your can you indicate if you'd like to speak? Or would you like to mute yourself? Honorable Whip. Thank you, Honorable Whip. I thought you wanted to say something. Honorable members, if we have nothing further to ask or comment, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much to all the heads of the departments who joined us today, members of the public who joined us today, members of the Civilian Secretariat led by Mr. Ramaro who joined us today, members of the National Commissioner's delegation. Thank you very much. We will welcome you back. If Friday, we'll communicate that to you. If next week, we will also communicate that to you. Thank you very much, General Rabi and your team. Thank you very much, General Insia. It seems as if I lost you. We'll continue with our engagements with the National Commissioner, the Whip, Deputy Minister, Minister, and the Chair. Thank you very much. The Minister will brief us after the NAT joins meeting. That would be Deputy Minister, National Commissioner, Chair, and Whip. Thank you very much, honorable members and the public. The meeting is now adjourned.